So Donald Trump did an interview with Christian Welker from NBC, and in this like hour or so interview, there were a bunch of stuff that was covered, but she specifically like questioned him on immigration and how he plans to or on his policy for to solve these this mass immigration. How is he going to deport all these people, or is he going to do it? And so many of these leftists keep asking him, yeah, he's gonna do it. Like that was his campaign promise, and that's what his main that's one of his main things he literally ran on was mass deportations. Yet they still question him, and they always want to talk about how, oh, it's so unfeasible, or oh, it's so it's these people are contributors to our country. Some of them are citizens. These people that were born here that are really just anchor babies. You know, like their parents never had citizenship or anything. Their parents came here illegally. They're anchor babies. Oh, they have citizenship. They're Americans. They're American citizens. They're not. And it's just so annoying to hear these people. Like, it's so disheartening. It's so sad to listen to these types of people unironically, like, tell you that, yeah, there's no point in really having a nation, as in what an actual nation is. We should rather just, like, make this place a open third world, like, strip mall, basically. You know, it's a strip mall for the rich, and it's a breeding ground for third worlders. That's what America should be, according to these people. White nations, Western nations, you know, they're the same thing. They don't get to have any national identity. You don't get to keep your identity. All of these white nations have to accept these mass migrants coming in that are literally pouring in by the millions and ethnically replacing whites. And if you don't accept it, you know, you're this fucking racist. You're a piece of shit. You're a white supremacist. These leftist interviewers like Kristen Welker or whatever her name is, you know, they really do. They ask, like, they unironically ask, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to deport these people? They're Americans. They contribute. Like, yes. Like, the answer to that question is yes. To all of them, to all of them who have that question, to anyone who could even fathom such a question. Yes. Like, why would we allow our people to be pretty much destroyed, our ethnos to be destroyed in this country? Like, you fundamentally do not understand what a nation is, what it's for. The reason that nations and national identities pretty much exist is because everything in nature in some way is racist by at least some form of modern definition of racism, or at least it would be considered such. Like, even coyotes segregate themselves from other packs and are like hyper territorial, and it's because, you know, in order to survive in nature, you have to have in-group preference. You have to have in-group preference for your group. You have to fight for your group. Like, you have to think about all these people that do mass migrate, like here to America, for example. None of them care about, for instance, the founding fathers. None of them care about the American Revolution. None of them care about, you know, the coal strikes in fucking West Virginia. None of them care about, you know, the settlement of the West and manifest destiny. You know, they don't care about the, you know, 54-40-year fight or whatnot with the U.S. and fucking Canada or Britain at the time. They don't care about these, like, events in history, like any random event that you could name in American history. They just do not give a shit about it because they have nothing to do with American history. They are not Americans. They are fundamentally not Americans or capable of becoming Americans because the founding fathers defined who can become an American in the 1790, 1795, 1798, and 1802 Naturalization Acts, the only naturalization acts our founding fathers ever created. And in each and every one of those, they made more and more specific who can be and who can't be an American. And that's it. Then after 1802, it was not until 1870 that another Naturalization Act was created, and it was created by guess who? People who weren't our founding fathers. Even then, the people who created the new Naturalization Act still were kind of not that expanding on it as to who naturalization now could encompass and who was now an American. People found nations for their own people. Founding populaces create nations for their populace because they have in-group preference. For instance, the Chinese didn't create China for the Kenyans. They didn't create it for the Russians. They didn't create it for the Japanese. They created it for the Chinese. The Iranians didn't create Iran for the Turkmen. They didn't create it for the Azeris. They didn't create it for, I don't know, Italians. They created Iran for Iranians. Nation states, these entities are based on evolutionary in-group preference. Like, that's the whole basis for them. If we don't start putting our founding population first, our nation is going to cease to exist as we know it. And in reality, it already kind of has, but it's going to really cease to exist and probably will eventually balkanize with all of these different groups here. Like, that's the inevitability of the United States, is a disunited balkanization that is of a bunch of different ethnic groups, unless we come to some sort of solution for that very real problem, a very real problem that is becoming more and more of an issue in the West. Like, literally, look at the UK, for example. The UK is in white native land, Europe, and the most popular name in the UK is Muhammad. Really? Like, seriously? More Indians own land in London than the native British population in the capital of the UK. That's incredible. And then people will still try to tell you, oh yeah, the Great Replacement isn't happening. It's a conspiracy theory. It's nonsense, yada, yada, yada. Like, whatever, shut the fuck up. Yeah, it's definitely happening, dude. It's observable with your own fucking two eyes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, anybody who tells you the Great Replacement isn't happening is either literally a blatant retard, or they are being willfully ignorant about the Great Replacement because they don't care and are likely themselves anti-white. The one thing I don't like that Donald said in the interview with Kristen is that he wants it to be easier for people to come into the United States. I don't, and I don't think that a majority of the U.S. population cares about that either. During his whole campaign, people excused him by saying, we just want people to come here legally. That was cope. It was cope like saying Donald didn't have anything to do with Project 2025. It was an election lie. And everybody knew it was. Everybody knew it was cap. Everybody knew he was just saying it so he could get elected. And that's fine. Project 2025, as much as what I've read of it, seems to be all right. But, you know, we as the American populace, by the vast majority, really don't want more immigrants to this country. And unless they're ethnically European, you know? I know with Tom Homan as the director of ICE that the mass deportations will get done. I just really hope that Donald doesn't misread the room and actually think that people want mass legal immigration to this country.